What a weekend it was. It's a Monday edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, and we are all still talking about one quarterback battle. Ironically, we're not talking about a great team or a great quarterback battle, no, but we are talking about the biggest drama we got in the NFL, and it came from Cleveland. The preseason gave us an opportunity to see Shedeur Sanders. He played a whole half, played pretty well against the Bills, and then all of a sudden Deshaun Watson came in. And in case you didn't see it, there weren't many highlights to see. In fact, mostly lowlights. No. Deshaun was god-awful, and the crowd let him know it throughout the course of the entire time that he was playing, booing him mercilessly in Cleveland, to which afterwards he reacted at the podium talking about it has nothing to do with the play. It's personal how much they dislike him. Caroline, in a situation that I already thought was wildly messy, it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten tougher to figure out. And now, instead of just being about how bad Deshaun was on the field, it's also about how poorly he handled it after that at the podium.
There's not a lot of redeeming qualities about Deshaun Watson, at least as a quarterback. Obviously, his history with the sexual assault allegations. And then we've seen the on-the-field performance. He's been off the field, actually, largely, whether it was the 11-game suspension, whether it's been the injuries. But when he has been on the field, he's been terrible. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Deshaun Watson does not look like he belongs as a starting quarterback in the National Football League, and I think that is even understating it. So there's not a lot really going for Deshaun Watson right now. But he just made it worse for himself in that post-game press conference yesterday. There are so many layers to this and so many reasons why I just shake my head and look at Deshaun Watson and say, you just don't get it. Like, you are so incredibly tone deaf with the things that you're saying. First of all, him bringing up about how it was personal, some of the boos. You sure you want to bring that up? Because Deshaun Watson himself has not acknowledged that. Of course, he's alluding to the sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations that came out several years ago. But he has just been living blissfully in this bubble, not addressing the sexual assault allegations. And then you just bring it up in a post-game press conference. The Browns, as an organization as a whole, has just been blissfully not mentioning Deshaun Watson's legal ongoings. So he brings it up in that instance, which I think is incredibly inappropriate and incredibly wrong. But what I don't think he realizes is when the Browns first made the trade, there were a lot of Browns fans that were willing to look past what Deshaun Watson was accused of doing because they believed that they had a franchise quarterback. Well, I don't care what he does off the field. Not that I agree with that. I vehemently disagree with that, but that was the sentiment in Cleveland. But I think everyone could have gotten past what Deshaun Watson was accused of doing if he was just a good, competent quarterback. If he was a franchise quarterback, but he's not that. So Deshaun Watson can't even acknowledge that he hasn't been good enough for the fully guaranteed contract that he's gotten. He also, I thought it was wildly tone deaf for Deshaun Watson to be calling out the fans for booing him. I don't think anybody wants a lesson in morality from Deshaun Watson. Well, he's also, he's like adjusting his earring and twirling the huge diamond earring that he has on his ear, which also is wildly tone deaf. It makes him look aloof. It makes him look like he's concerned about other things other than speaking with the media. And it also is just a symbol of he is the millionaire in the room. The fans owe you nothing. You are the one that the Browns traded 3 first-round picks for. You are the one with the fully guaranteed contract. You owe the fans everything. The fans owe you nothing. There was and also, lastly, when a reporter asked, do you regret coming here? Which I thought was a fantastic question. I don't know who asked it, but good on that reporter for asking that question and, digging a little bit deeper. And Deshaun Watson said, I don't regret anything in my life. Really? After you just alluded to the dozens of sexual harassment allegations against you, you don't regret anything in your life? Shame on you, Deshaun Watson. Shame on you.
Well, you see the tweet there from Quincy Carter. We're going to bring Quincy Carter in now. Browns YouTuber Quincy Carter, you've got the pulse of Cleveland. That's just part of our reaction. We've got plenty to say on this, but I'm always interested, Quincy. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. I want to get right to how Cleveland feels about it. We can speak about it from the outside. You're there. When Cleveland Browns fans see that press conference afterwards, how does that hit the city and the fan base?
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson just kind of represents kind of an era of embarrassment for the city, right? Like he's kind of that embodiment for them. Obviously, paid them a lot of money to try to solve a long-term problem the Cleveland Browns have had, right? The quarterback jersey. We all know about Cleveland's quarterback woes. And he's just another chapter in that story for Browns fans. And I think because of that contract, they haven't been able to move on from this in an appropriate timeline, where I think they should have just gone on from this in 2024. Now this thing has lingered all the way till 2026, and fans still feel the same way about it, right? They're still very disappointed in the play from Deshaun Watson. They're disappointed that the organization went for him. You can add in some of the parallels of how fans felt about Baker Mayfield, and then you bring in Deshaun Watson to replace him. And it just leads to something where he just represents a missed opportunity. I mean, this team doesn't have Myles Garrett because for part of the reason Myles wasn't happy not being on the contender. Well, they were supposed to be a contender with Deshaun Watson, right? So you could even point to him as the reason why you don't have that guy on your roster as well. So he's just kind of the perfect embodiment of all of the things that have went wrong over the last 5 years. And because he's out there on the field still playing quarterback, maybe even starting for this team, it doesn't allow the fan base to just move on from it, because he's just such a big part of why things have gone wrong over the last 5 years.
What can Deshaun Watson do, if anything, to come back from this and get back into the good graces of Browns fans?
I don't think he's ever going to get into the good graces of Browns fans. Like, I think that bridge is kind of set and burnt at this point. If he can get to maybe more of a neutral place, if he just plays well enough. But yeah, I think it's at the point now where he's in Art Modell territory for this franchise. Like, it's just, he's just represents so much bad at this point. I don't know if he puts it together for like a 9-win season, how much of a difference that's going to make. I mean, even if they go to the playoffs and get to the second round, he's still underperforming that contract. So for Watson, I mean, the only thing he can really do to make things better is just like get to the end of this contract. Really, it's just what it is. I don't think there's really anything that's going to change that, right? Like, fans feel how they feel about him. I don't think we're at the place where that's open to change. Maybe in 2023, where it looked like things were going to turn around with him, there was an opportunity for that. But after the 2024 season, this story was set in stone. It's just about what the final couple pages are going to be.
Well, and look, Quincy, I'll be honest with you. I'm a Raiders fan. My team has also struggled at the quarterback position for a long time. When Deshaun was acquired by the Browns, I said at ESPN at the time, I said, man, I'm so glad my team didn't acquire him, because I think it's been complicated from day one, right? Like, this is, if you're a fan of the Browns and you had nothing to do with bringing Deshaun Watson in, but now the team you've rooted for your entire life has a problem personality at the quarterback position, that's just, it's a tough spot to be in for fans. Now he stands at the podium and he basically takes it out on the fans. And I'm not saying I support cheering somebody when they're hurt. Like, I think that there are just bad things done throughout all of this. But for Todd Monken to say that the press conference won't factor into his decision, I understand that he's all football all the time and he can get away with that. But what's that say to the fans who are going to have to decide whether or not they're cheering for this man yet again?
Yeah, I think the fans have made up their mind. They're not going to cheer for him, right? Like, if he goes out there in the regular season at home, he's going to get booed again. And it's going to be something to where, it gets pushed past the line, and then fans are going to get yelled at by the players, and then we're going to have that whole situation happen. Nothing that's happened with Deshaun Watson since 2023 has been unpredictable. Even when he got cheered, when he got injured, I remember talking with people weeks before, like, hey, they got to bench him before you get back to Cleveland, because if something bad happens at home for him, the reaction is going to be ugly. People are fed up. I think from Todd's case, like the one piece of slack I can give Todd Monken is he hasn't been here the last 5 years. I don't think he understands how fed up the fan base is with this whole era of Browns quarterback, right, with Deshaun Watson. So this might be a bit of a shock to him. He might not fully grasp just how much it is. He might think, hey, if he plays well, it's going to be fine. I don't know if that's the case. And then we also got to address the elephant in the room, right? We're talking about if he plays well. We saw how he looked in the third quarter of a preseason game where both teams did not play starters, right? Like the idea that he's going to go out there and play good enough football to quell this storm is kind of ludicrous at this point. I get that if you're Todd, you're thinking that that's Deshaun Watson. He used to be in the MVP conversation. There's no way that he can't get back to it. But if you've been in Cleveland the last 4 years watching this is exactly what Deshaun Watson has looked like outside of maybe 5 weeks in 2023, where he looked significantly better than what he has here. But what we saw on Saturday from him in the preseason, it wasn't shocking to me. It was nostalgic, to be honest, because that's what he's been since he's been here.
I want to drill down on that real quick because I think you make a very important point. Monken hasn't been there. He's unaware of the relationship between the fans and the player. Now that he is aware, there's no way today he can't be aware of where this stands. How much should that factor in to his decision making at what to do at the quarterback position?
We've watched football a ton, right? So we know how much NFL teams tend to place value on guys who aren't distractions versus guys who are distractions, right? And I don't know how this situation isn't a massive distraction because when Deshaun Watson gets booed, right, that's the team's teammate that gets booed. And the team's going to have a reaction to that. They're going to be asked in press conference, how do you feel about your starting quarterback getting booed by the home fans? And that's going to become a massive distraction. I just don't see how, from a football standpoint, the play can justify the level of distraction here. Like, I've been in Cleveland for a while. Look, I've heard the controversies about Odell Beckham's watch. Odell Beckham got kicked out of Cleveland because his dad posted on Instagram, and that was too much of a distraction for this team while Baker Mayfield was here. I hear all this about how much of a distraction that Shedeur Sanders is because he has his own cameraman and he has his everything going on off the field with him. I don't know how this isn't a bigger distraction. 75,000 people booing your starting quarterback, making it hard for your operation to get handled on offense because they will not be quiet because they do not like the guy who's starting at quarterback. And then that quarterback going on a press conference and basically betting the city of Cleveland, who did Bottlegate, who did the LeBron return. Like, you look at all the like memorable Cleveland fan moments, a lot of them are angry moments. You know what I mean? Like, daring that fan base to boo him harder, basically, in that press conference. I don't know how this is not going to be a massive distraction for this team. And I think Todd might not fully understand the scope of this until he sees it in the regular season. He might think that this is a temporary thing. But if we get to the regular season 0-2, Deshaun Watson looks like how he's been the last few years, and then you play a home game on national TV against the Pittsburgh Steelers week 4 with him there, it's going to get ugly. And I know this city has the capacity to do ugly better than most. And that's going to be where it becomes obvious that this is a distraction. But I'm saying right now, August 24, it's obvious right now it's going to be too big of a distraction for this team.
Deshaun Watson has been nothing but a distraction from the moment he stepped foot in Cleveland. Just from hearing you talk, it kind of sounds like the vibe that I'm getting is that if you were Todd Monken, you would not name Deshaun Watson the starter. Is that correct?
I don't think you can justify it at this point, right? Like, the play, before we even got here, the question was like, was he so bad in that preseason game that you can put him out there and name him the starter? I thought it was pretty tough to do that because they clearly do want to name Deshaun Watson star, right? They've structured the reps in a certain way. They've done it in joint practice where he took the bulk of the first team reps. This is who they want to name the starter. And then Deshaun Watson went out there and looked as bad as I've seen a quarterback in the preseason, regardless of team, look. And I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be hard to justify on Monday when they want to call him starter, right? 36 passing. I mean, again, third quarter of a preseason game, y'all. He's a 6-year, 7-year veteran, right? That already should have made it difficult. And then this situation happens, and I wonder if it's going to operate like a shield where they're like, no, the football reasoning is sound. This is just a fan situation, and that's how they justify it. But it was hard to justify from a football standpoint based on what he did on Saturday. I just don't think there's a good argument for him to be out there. I know they want a veteran to play, but if you want a veteran to start, you should go trade for Jameis Winston or something like that and get a veteran because it can't be Deshaun Watson.
I'm with you 100%. I've been saying Shedeur for a while now, and after Deshaun Watson had a 14.1 quarterback rating in a preseason game against backups and the press conference, I'm like, I feel even better about my decision to start Shedeur. But with that being said, if Shedeur is the starter, or if it's someone not named Deshaun Watson that's a starting quarterback in Cleveland, what does Cleveland do with Deshaun?
My personal opinion, they should probably just deal with 52 on the roster and just have him as emergency third string quarterback for the rest of the year. Obviously, with the NFLPA, you just can't send somebody home, right? Like you have to
Mhm.
have just cause for that. But you can make him your emergency third string quarterback, not on your game day 48, but on your active 53, and just roll with that till the end of the season. And try not to get to your emergency third string quarterback situation in games. Like I think that's pretty much what you can do if you're Cleveland. You just got to bite the bullet. I thought that was a strong possibility. Again, not even because he would say anything silly in the press conference. I thought we were over that part with Deshaun Watson. But just because I was wondering after 2 Achilles tears, and remember, like the last time he played, I Bleav out of 46 quarterbacks who got over 100 snaps, he was 45th in success rate, right? I had real questions about whether he'd be able to provide NFL level quarterback play when he came back from that injury. So I thought that he would maybe be emergency third string quarterback, but now he's talked himself and, he's close to playing himself into that kind of a role. And I think that's honestly what the team should do. I get why they don't want to cut him now because you accelerate all the guaranteed money there and you could spread the money out a lot easier. If you get to the end of the year, you post June 1st, cut him. From a salary cap standpoint, I get what they're trying to do. It's just going to take more sacrifices than I think they anticipated. And I think that sacrifice is going to be an extra roster spot.
Yeah, well, and you've seen him. You've seen Shedeur up close, right? Maybe we're all missing something here. Have you seen in the reps, before we get you out of here real quick, have you seen in the reps that he's had, whether it's joint practice, just being around camp, have you seen the necessary sort of component from Shedeur that makes you think he can actually be a starter? Not just, well, why not roll him out there, but this kid's a starting quarterback in the NFL.
There are some traits that Shedeur has that are exciting from a quarterback standpoint, right? He can throw a pretty deep ball downfield. I think he's pretty exciting at times. The big issue with Shedeur and why I can get why they wanted a veteran quarterback to play is Shedeur doesn't necessarily take what the defense is giving him and doesn't do a great job of like the kind of basic fundamentals that you want a quarterback to do, right? Sometimes he holds the ball a little bit long. Sometimes he's not getting it out or throwing it to the designer to play. And there's some things that you want to make sure that's not there by the time that he plays. He still looks like a young quarterback who needs to have some kinks wrinkled out before he gets out there on the field. Like I can understand the position that the Browns were in because when you watch Shedeur, there's some good things there that you feel like you could preserve and maybe get a starting quarterback out of. But I also feel like there's progress there that you can ruin if he plays too early. And I do think the beginning of the season would be technically a little early for Shedeur to play. The problem is that there's no other veteran quarterback on the roster, and the guy that you have is Deshaun Watson, and I don't think he's playable at this point. So you got to go throw Shedeur out there. So I think this is probably the worst case scenario for the Cleveland Browns when they envision what they could do with this quarterback room. I think they were hoping that Deshaun could hold the fort down for like 5-6 weeks and then they could make the switch to Shedeur. I don't think they were anticipating being in a situation where they could have to pull the trigger on Shedeur probably as early as week 3 because again, you start on the road, so you might be able to get away with Deshaun Watson as a starter for the first 2 weeks, but if he's not playing well, you can't bring him back home.
You guys can follow him on Twitter, X at Quinn_C. Check out his great work on YouTube. Quincy Carrier, man, we appreciate your time. The expectation is we're going to find out about a starter today. So it's going to be a wild day. We'll all keep you covered on it. Quincy, thanks so much for the time and the insight, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
It's great stuff from Quincy. It's going to be a wild year in Cleveland. The math ain't mathin' on one important thing a lot of people are trying to tell you about Deshaun. We'll tell you about it next.
Are you surprised by this, that you still love it this much, that it still connects with you this deeply after all these years?
No, it doesn't surprise me, actually. It really doesn't. But I've had to structure the relationship differently. Before, wrestling was everything. And coming back this time, though, I've really, really, truly just tried to focus on the enjoyment of all of it.
I don't think anyone would have lived up to the expectations that we as a population placed on Arch. We were imagining that this guy's going to come in and immediately be amazing and immediately win the Heisman and lead his team to a national title. And then right out of the gate, he has to play maybe the nastiest defense in college football with first rounders all over the field. And believe it or not, first time starting quarterbacks usually not very good against that sort of defense.
You see the isolated one-on-one routes, and when like the footwork is there, the timing and the space, it's like poetic, it's elegant, it's artistic, it's aesthetically pleasing, it's all that type of stuff. And then some of the acrobatic catches were just simply sensational. But he was just really frustrating to me when watching him as a prospect. He's one of these players that I so understand how you can fall in love and obsess and the high-end outcomes, and if it all hits, he's going to look like one of the route runners that we absolutely love.
You add Cam Boozer, who is going to be good right away. You trade for Jeremy Grant, who had a resurgence last season in Portland. Cedric Howard year 2. Ty Jerome wasn't healthy last year, but he was great when he was at the end of the year. You bring him back this year in full. Adding Isaiah Stewart off the bench, a great, versatile big man who can shoot threes and offer defense. This is a deep Grizzlies roster. Like, there's going to be good players not getting minutes.
The Cleveland Browns quarterback situation is going to be a complicated one. We expect a starter to be named by Todd Monken today. Albert Breer tweeted out, I went into yesterday pretty certain that Deshaun Watson was going to be the Browns starter. Now I'm not sure he's going to be on the team. That press conference is going to be difficult to come back from. We'll see how the decision makers reckon with it. That from Albert Breer. And I share some of his sentiment, Caroline, because I've been pretty adamant on this show. I think Deshaun Watson, I think the Browns have told us the quiet thing out loud, that Deshaun Watson's going to be their starter. But I think the press conference made all of that much more difficult to sort of figure out if you're in Cleveland. Where I think people are sometimes getting things twisted is this concept that Deshaun Watson is not even going to be on the team. And I saw Dan Orlovsky, friend of the show, this morning talking about, got to get him out of there on ESPN. It is worth pointing out the numbers to everybody yet again. His dead cap hit, if he were to be cut, if they were just to let him go, would require that Cleveland free up over $40 million in additional cap space. You can't just cut somebody. When you cut him, the cap accelerates to right now today. The Browns don't have the available cap space to cut Deshaun Watson today, even if they wanted to. So they would have to make massive cuts and restructures all over their roster just to be able to get him off the roster. And then people say, well, let him stay but on the team, but send him home. Well, the Players Association, the collective bargaining agreement doesn't let you do that. You can't pay a player and force him to go home. He can agree to go home. So Deshaun Watson could agree to go home and just not come to the facility if he wants to, but what's the benefit to him for that? He gets paid his money either way. So I think some of the math here where everybody wants to come in and say, well, cut Deshaun Watson, I just want to remind you that you just can't do that simply because the massive amount, it would cost them an additional, I've got it in front of me, $86 million in dead cap money if they wanted to cut him today. They'd have to free up, they have about $31 million in cap space. So to cut him, they'd have to free up an additional $55 million today in salary cap space. You can't do that. So Deshaun Watson is going to be a Brown this year.
If you could cut players with zero salary cap implications, I think we'd see a lot more players get cut than we actually see in real life. So it doesn't make any sense for the Browns to cut Deshaun Watson. What makes the most sense, and we had Quincy Carrier, who covers the Cleveland Browns, on in the last segment. I think that what he said, what he would do if he was in charge in Cleveland, makes the most sense to me. Just stash him on the bench. Make him the emergency third quarterback. You're going to have to pay him no matter what. whether he's there, whether he's starting, or whether he's sitting at home. So just go ahead and stash him on the bench. You don't have to take the salary cap hit that it would take if you do cut him. You're going to pay him because you have to pay him no matter what, but at least he's not your starting quarterback. At least he's not going to lead into any more controversy or disarray or unwanted attention that he has already garnered just in the preseason. How many times have we talked about press conferences after preseason games in the history of our careers? I can probably count it on one hand, but here we are with Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, because we just have to do this with the Browns, don't we? They always find themselves in some sort of controversy. But I have been saying for a while, and I'm with you, it sounded like Deshaun was going to be the starter, but if I was in charge, I would name Shedeur Sanders just to see what you have in the young guy. You know what you have in Deshaun Watson. You don't know what you have in Shedeur. And if Shedeur looks like a starter, congratulations, you found a starting quarterback in the 5th round. And if he doesn't, then you're probably going to be bad enough to find your quarterback of the future in next year's draft. I would rather roll the dice with that. So that was my thinking all along. I've been very consistent with that throughout the entire offseason. But watching Deshaun Watson in the preseason look like he was totally discombobulated and didn't belong on a football field against a bunch of backups in the preseason was enough. Deshaun Watson calling out the fans was enough. So if I already thought that Shedeur should have been the starter, what Deshaun Watson showed me over the weekend makes me feel that much better about that, about your decision for the right now and potentially for the short-term future of the Cleveland Browns.
The only pushback I have to that logic, it's all sound, Caroline, but what if, like we keep saying, we don't know what we have with Shedeur. This is now a second coaching staff that is supposed to have some level of offensive expertise that has watched Shedeur in practice, and they feel like they do know what they have. What if what they're seeing every day that we don't see in practice and joint practices and just the way that everything runs in meetings and is processing, what if they do know that they don't have a starting quarterback? No, they haven't seen enough game reps to know in the way that we want to know, because we all turn around and say, well, Shedeur wasn't supposed to be a 5th round draft pick, and certainly he should be there. But at this point, if we assign the same logic to Dillon Gabriel, like, I think we know Dillon Gabriel is not a starter in the NFL. We don't need to keep seeing more for us to know that Dillon Gabriel. We've all decided that's okay. Yeah. We can't seem to decide that's okay for Shedeur. And I just wonder, at some point, when a second coaching staff has walked in the room and the second coaching staff has looked at you every single day in practice and the second coaching staff is not trying to put you on the field, I wonder if where we're all wrong in looking at Shedeur is we're saying we don't know. What if the Browns coaches are saying, no, we see him every day in practice. We know he is not a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Then you're terrible. And you draft Arch Manning or Dante Moore or CJ Carr or any of those other quarterbacks in next year's draft. Because I just don't think there is any way that you can justify Deshaun Watson being your starting quarterback. Because I don't think Deshaun Watson is that much better than Shedeur Sanders. If we just want to go off of one preseason game, which of course that's not what coaches do, that's not what we do, but let's just do that for the sake of this argument. Shedeur Sanders looked significantly better in one preseason game and a half than Deshaun Watson looked. So Deshaun Watson is, I don't think from what we've seen, is going to win you significantly more games. Deshaun Watson is going to command so much negative energy and negative attention. The fans don't look like they're going to stop booing anytime soon. What does that do for the morale of your team? A team with a bunch of young players that have really promising futures ahead of them. It's not worth it. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how the Browns could justify starting Deshaun Watson. And if Shedeur Sanders is that bad, does look like a 5th round pick this year, go find your quarterback of the future next year.
An unenviable position for Browns fans, for the Browns organization, for Browns players, and for Todd Monken as a coach. Unenviable if you're not hanging out with us for 29 days of fantasy. It is continuing. What if you could draft an entire team offense like you do when you draft an entire team defense in fantasy? Now you can. Team offense brings team-level scoring, including touchdowns, yards, and wins into your weekly lineup. It's already a default position in college football fantasy, and now commissioners can add it to NFL leagues through roster settings. Try it today. YahooFantasy.com. When we return on Yahoo Sports Daily, we're going to keep the fun going. Friend of the show, coach of one of the best teams in the country, Texas Tech, Joey McGuire, coach, going to join us next.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Marquette, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
They're my top offense heading into this year. I think you had them in your top 10 as well.
I mean, yeah, I had them 4. You had them number 1. So you did mog me on the offensive rankings for Dallas. But yeah, we're both really excited about this unit. And I mean, what's there to not be excited about? As long as the 2 receivers are healthy and Dak Prescott's healthy, and some of the role players taking a step forward. I mean, this team is going to absolutely smoke people on offense this year. What a weird quote. Like, we have the upside to be great. We could be really bad too. Is that that's a real quote, right? He actually said that?
He said that, and I got to agree. I think it's maybe more likely they end up on the bad side. I'm not expecting a lot of wins for the Bulls this season, but they are in a fun zone right now, which is young team, low expectations, but probably a fun team.
The Patrick Mahomes Let's Ride uniform debuting 9/18/26 for Texas Tech. We have Coach back with us just days after your school announces they are rocking these. Joey McGuire, head coach for Texas Tech, joins us. All right, so we talked to you before about you and Patrick staying in touch. How does the uni collab come together? Do you guys go to Patrick, or does Patrick come to you guys and say, guys, I have an idea?
Well, thanks for having me on, by the way. I appreciate you guys. It's kind of been a mixture of, over the years. I think this is going to be his third, true Patrick Mahomes uniform. I mean, we have every one of the uniforms we're wearing this year has his logo on it, the Gladiator logo. But, I think the first one was really his idea, and the last 2 been kind of a mixture of Adidas, us, and Patrick, and what we all like.
Those are awesome. I would be wildly intimidated if my opponent came out of the tunnel wearing those all black uniforms. But no doubt Patrick Mahomes has, put himself into the Hall of Fame of Texas Tech quarterbacks. Will Hammond hopes to follow in his footsteps. And of course, you had to make a pivot and a change at the starting quarterback position late in the game. What have you seen and what have you liked from Will Hammond so far in practice?
Well, he's come out, and, the thing about Will, and I love the way you said that, there was a pivot because we had to pivot twice. We expected Will to be our starting quarterback this year. And he, has an injury against Oklahoma State. And, I just think the amount of money that you invest in these programs nowadays, that it's really hard to say, okay, we don't have any setbacks. We're just going to ride with the quarterback we have. And so whenever he tore his ACL, it made me nervous to say, okay, we can go into the season and he'll be back. If he has setbacks, then he's not going to be back till mid-year. He doesn't have any setbacks, and so he's back a little bit earlier than we thought. I love Will Hammond. He is an old soul. He is very serious about football, and man, his teammates love him. I mean, you could see the way they reacted to him whenever he came in the Utah game and helped us win that game last year.
That being said, you guys also bring in from Florida State, Tommy Castellano. So what's your message? In modern college football, Coach, feels like it's hard to have a lot of you need quarterback depth, but also everybody wants to play. So what's your sort of message in the quarterback room to everybody there that's trying to get on the field?
Well, that's rumors so far. I will tell you, we have not done that, but we are actively trying to make this the best roster that we can make, and so we're constantly looking at what's going on. We're probably not as aggressive from the standpoint of what LSU is doing. And, I'm not calling any NFL coaches and checking to see who they're going to cut, but we're definitely making sure that we're watching every single thing that's going on, with the different cases, the NCAA. The one thing that we talk about all the time at this place, our brand is we're the toughest, most competitive, hardest working, most competitive team in the country. And whenever you're talking about most competitive, you got to understand that you've got to compete every single day, for your position. We want competition. We want competition, in that quarterback room. And, we went out and, we got Kirk Francis in the portal last year to push that quarterback room. And he's had a really good fall camp. Lloyd Jones, he's a young quarterback. I mean, we want these guys to compete and understand they're going to have an opportunity to get on the field.
You mentioned LSU, just for people who may not have been paying attention over the weekend. Daquan Wright, who was recently in a Browns uniform in a preseason game, he expects to be waived by the Cleveland Browns and does expect to enroll at LSU and play for LSU this year. This has been just the latest story and a long list of stories of players who may not make NFL rosters and plan to come back for their 5th year of eligibility in college football. You mentioned the competitive balance and the competitive advantage that adding some of those players would add, but also understanding that feels a little strange that we might see some players in college football that were previously wearing NFL jerseys. How do you, as a head coach who has to manage your roster and also has to manage the PR for your football program and for the university, how do you balance that competitive advantage, but also maybe the feeling that feels wrong?
Yeah, and it's tough because I didn't think we'd be living in the age that we live in right now, but I also love my job, and I know, and I love Lubbock, Texas, and I want to be here for the rest of my life. And as much as I think the administration and my fan base love me, if I don't win, then I don't get to stay in Lubbock, Texas. And so if these are the rules, I use that term very loosely. If these are the rules that we're going to play by, then I have an obligation to Texas Tech to field the very best team that I can field. And so I can definitely understand where the different coaches are coming from. I heard Dan talk about it, Dan Lanning in Oregon. Don't disagree with him. And I know Coach Kiffin, his thoughts. And, whether you agree or disagree, this is the landscape that they've asked us to play in. And it's your job to field the most competitive team. I do keep my guys. I am extremely honest with my football team. I've met with my leadership group. I've met with Will Hammond. I want these guys to know exactly what we're going to do if we're going to do something. We feel great about our football team. And so if this is the team that we field September 5th, we feel great about it. But it's also, my duty to make sure that we're fielding the best team. And I think being honest with your guys, they definitely can understand where you're coming from.
With that being said, Coach, I mean, I've echoed that sentiment many times. You and I share that belief, and I believe that at the end of the day, this is business. Right now, it's now high-level business for everybody involved, for these players and for you. What would you say, though, to some people that say, hey, what about the obligation to protect the future of college football? Where's the line when I agree with you? Your job is to win games, but there are people that push back and say, hey, there's also a responsibility to not do these things if it protects the future of the sport.
Yeah, what I would say to them is that's a whole nother reason that we have to have legislation at another level. We have shown, and I say we, I'm a part of it. We have shown as an industry, and it's just not football, it's every sport, that we cannot govern ourselves under the rules that we're playing in right now because, these rules have been challenged. They could have been challenged a long time ago, and they probably wouldn't have held up. And so until we get to a point to where we have rules set in stone that are going to hold up, you don't see these issues in professional sports. So at some point, we've got to take that model. I mean, my players are getting paid like a professional athlete. They have obligations to make sure they go to class and they do what they're supposed to be doing as a student athlete, but they're also getting paid. And so until we get to that foundation of what the NFL is doing, what the NBA is doing, we're going to continue to have these issues. And we've proven that we can't do it ourselves.
Coach, there's no doubt that certain elements of being a college football coach just don't come in a manual. You know, you can study X's and O's and watch as much film as you can, but nobody prepares you for this. And I'm sure nobody prepared you for dealing with the Brendan Sorsby saga that you and the entire Texas Tech football program dealt with this past year. When you look back on that, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, one, I would encourage everybody. It's coming out September 4th. There's a four-part series on, really the start. It starts the night of the national championship game, and it ends with, our last scrimmage. And but we were really open with that documentary, and so you get a really good look at what it looked like, boots on the ground behind the scenes. The one thing that I've said the whole time that I would have done different, if I would have known that the NFL and really the commissioner, I say the NFL, we spoke to 50 plus NFL personnel the days before the commissioner said that they were not going to allow Brendan Sorsby to be a part of the supplemental draft. If I would have known that from the beginning, I love Brendan. And, he's been out here. He was at a practice the other day. I would have said, hey, let's just don't take this chance, man. I don't want that for you. It's amazing where across all levels of football and really athletics that there are going to be people playing this year. They're going to be suspended for X amount of games. And Brendan Sorsby is going to have to sit out and wait till 2027 to play at any level. And if I would have known that, I would have said, let's pivot and let's do something else. Because, man, I hate that for him. I think it's going to be good for him in his recovery. He looks great. He's working his tail off. He's dealing with his issues. He has an issue. He's an addict. And for some reason, that addiction, I guess, is okay in the eyes of everybody else. That maybe that gambling's not an addiction. It is. I think, I could be totally wrong. I hate to be wrong whenever I talk about stuff like this, but I think it has the highest suicide rate of any addiction. And so I hate it for him that he's having to sit out, but I know he's going to use this to his advantage to become a better person.
Do you feel like, because we covered it obviously on this show a lot, and I don't remember ever hearing as much just anger from a college football community as suddenly was coming towards Texas Tech. Coach, are you guys hunted this year? Do you feel like there's a different level of out to get you from other teams, even looking at Texas Tech on their schedule this year?
That was another thing. Like, honestly, I knew we were going to have some blowback, but I did not expect. I mean, that really, you think about that one subject and where we're at, everybody, it didn't seem like anybody agreed with anything that we were doing. I thought we were hunted last year because of how aggressive we were in the transfer portal. We just did what everybody else was doing. We didn't have the highest payroll last year. And once again, we're nowhere close to the highest payroll this year. And so I felt that last year. I think it's even more, but I will tell you this, people come together with shared success, but we come even closer together with shared adversity. And we've gone through some adversity, and our team is extremely close. And, they heard what everybody said. And there's a lot of teams on our schedule that have said a lot of stuff. And so that's awesome. That just makes my job easier to get guys ready to play on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday this year with our schedule. And so we'll be ready to go. And, I don't think I won't use some of that as fire to push some of those buttons to make sure that we're really, on point of who we're playing.
Well, look, your team's going to look great on the field because they're great, but also they're going to look great in those Mahomes unis. They are fire, Coach. Always appreciate your candor and your honesty in handling some of these weird issues. Caroline's right. There's no manual for it. We appreciate your your openness in talking about it. Best of luck this season, my friend. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
You bet. Always a pleasure to come on. And if y'all ever need anything, man, give me a call. I'm probably not always right, but I usually have an opinion about everything when it comes to football.
Oh, that's great stuff from Coach Joey
Coach.
McGuire. And best of luck this season. He is one of the best in the business to do it. And it's going to be fun to watch that Texas Tech football team throughout the course of the year. Coming up, a scare yesterday in Vegas. We'll get you the latest on Ashton Jeanty and his injury concerns. What's the biggest difference between college fantasy football and NFL fantasy football?
Biggest difference is going to be the player pool. And we're doing Power 4 only here at Yahoo. That's 68 teams. You have 32 in the NFL. You know the entire rosters of these teams. When it comes to college, there's so much turnover and transfer portal moves, plus graduations, that every roster is in flux from year to year. And you're constantly reestablishing that continuity.
Somebody told me that, I think this is just a great line, said that you can't trust, obviously, the SEC to police the SEC and the Big Ten to police the Big Ten. So why doesn't the SEC police the Big Ten and the Big Ten can police the SEC? And I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Well, Ross,
This
let me
is
tell you
genius.
something. Whoever said that is a genius. Make them commissioner of college
Man,
football.
Please, God, let that happen. Yeah.
Want to talk about the receivers as well. Tetero McMillan, I think star. Awesome. I think I was very high on him coming out of the draft. I think he's done nothing but make me solidify what I thought he could be. True X, got some yak ability as well.
Yep.
He was, racking up explosive plays on inbreakers and just really, really cool player. Just you don't see athletes this big and this fluid, and that's what's really fun about him.
What gives you confidence that Bo Nix can bring another Lombardi trophy to Denver?
I love the way he competes. And when you're in a game, you're never out of a game. And that's how I measure quarterbacks. When there's 2 minutes on the clock and we have to have a drive, who is the guy in that huddle? Those traits where he can just flip a switch when you need it, down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and here comes Bo. So I love that about him.
Well, I had a moment yesterday. Raiders running back Ashton Jeanty, who had to be helped off the field today, is believed to have sprained his ankle, sources tell Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. Raiders still unsure how long he will be out, but it is not considered a long-term injury. The organization is breathing a sigh of relief today. The Raiders declined any comment on Jeanty's injury. As we sit here right now, Monday morning, there's an expectation, hopefully, to get an update later in the day. But certainly, my phone starts blowing up yesterday. I'm out there at an amazing film festival between Yahoo Media and the Nonfiction Hot List. And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, did you hear about Jeanty? Oh, you got a Jeanty update. Everybody panicked. Reports were that the entire team took a knee. Everybody was saying a prayer. It looked really bad, as we do on Twitter. Everybody sort of freaked out. But Caroline, at least it seems for now, while we don't know anything about what it means for his availability in week 1, it at least seems like the initial fear of something catastrophic may have been avoided.
I thought it was catastrophic. I mean, we don't have video of it. Obviously, we're in practice, but just the verbiage around it. He landed awkwardly. The team gathered around for a prayer afterwards. You don't hear those kinds of things for injuries that might just be short-lived or that'll just keep Ashton Jeanty off the field for a couple of weeks. You hear that for really gross, gruesome injuries that might leave him off the field for an extended period of time. So my mind is going to worst case scenario. My mind is going to Ashton Jeanty won't be here for the year. Then, what does that do for Fernando Mendoza's development? What does that do for the run game in Vegas? What does that do for, just the development as this team as a whole? Like, I'm thinking worst case scenario. So great to hear that it's doesn't seem as bad as at least it initially did, or at least as I initially interpreted it. Great to hear that Ashton Jeanty, it'll just be a short-term thing, at least from what we do know right now, at least from all the reporting that we've gotten. So great news. At least it feels as close to best case scenario just compared to how it sounded initially. But I was worried about you, Fitzy. You
Yeah.
and your Raiders.
Well,
I've been so high on this team. The football vibes index is off the chart for this team. Everything that they did in the offseason, it feels like they're bringing along Fernando Mendoza the right way that you want your young quarterback to be developed, to sit behind a pro and Kirk Cousins. So I had so much good. I have all the good vibes going for this Raiders team. And, Ashton Jeanty's injury obviously would kind of take a hit to that, but good to see that it won't be anything long term.
well, look, fantasy football players, a couple of lessons here. This is why you draft as close to the regular season as possible, because you want as much information as possible. And also, peek behind the curtain. We had this conversation off air the other day. I think we got to remember that the Raiders are going to be a two-back system this year. Remember that that's part of what Clint Kubiak liked in Seattle. It doesn't mean that Kenneth Walker isn't incredible. It just means that he liked Walker with Charbonnet together, like a dual action. I think that's what the Raiders are trying to find with their combination of Ashton Jeanty, who's been mostly in bubble wrap this preseason, and Mike Washington, the rookie draft pick at the running back position out of Arkansas, who looks to me like he's going to suck up some of those carries. So I'm just saying, maybe I was already sort of in on a late round flyer on Washington. Shouldn't admit that before our own draft here on this show for our fantasy leagues. But just a reminder that I expect a two-headed beast, Caroline, at the running back position, which you need. I mean, at the end of the day, more often than not, guys are going to get dinged up. So certainly the Raiders are better with Ashton Jeanty playing, but I also need to remind the world that I think this is going to be Ashton Jeanty and Mike Washington Jr.'s backfield together. Hopefully, though, Ashton Jeanty back early in this one. We also got injury update in San Francisco. Some big news. George Kittle has been activated off the PUP list for the 49ers. So there is at least the chance that he could come back soon from this. He's been out since suffering a torn Achilles in January. And Caroline, the first thing that hit me is I remember when a torn Achilles was you miss a year and then the next calendar year, you're not very good. So it was like a 2-year injury. Now we got Kittle 9 months after being like, yeah, no, get me out there. I want to be on the field. I'm stunned by this recovery timeline.
It's absolutely crazy and a testament to modern medicine. It's the same thing with ACL tears. I remember a time when a torn ACL could have ended your career. Now, at this point, it's like, all right, I'll be back in like 8 months. Of course, it's devastating, and of course, it's terrible for that respective player, but we kind of view it as, well, he'll be back next year. No biggie. We kind of view it almost as like a pinky nail, hangnail at this point in the NFL. So really cool to see how shortened these recovery timelines are, especially at George Kittle's age. He's not a spring chicken. So this is huge news for the San Francisco 49ers. We also saw Christian McCaffrey back at practice over the weekend as well. So 2 major developments. We've talked a lot about the ceiling and the floor for this 49ers team, because last year they were as injured, knock on wood, as a football team could possibly be. We saw Brock Purdy on the sidelines at some point. Nick Bosa and Fred Warner both had season-ending injuries. George Kittle had the torn Achilles. I mean, the list went on and on and on and on. But if this team is fully healthy and you can see those core pieces of this team, whether it's George Kittle himself, Christian McCaffrey, pieces of the defense, now Mike Evans, if they can stay healthy for the majority of a 17-game season, the ceiling for this team is Super Bowl. They have the coaching. They have the talent. They have the experience. This is a Super Bowl upside kind of team. But we know with the 49ers, at least in recent history, expecting all of them to be healthy for the better part of a 17-game season is probably not a very safe bet. But if they are, this 49ers team, I think they are Super Bowl contenders. So getting those 2 back, I think, is massive. And keeping them on the field is even bigger.
Modern medicine is, I'll speak to my own life in this for a second, but it still blows my mind that a little over a month ago, they sawed me open and they took 2 arteries, one from under my chest and one from in my arm, to replace arteries in my heart. And the funny thing is I had that happen, and the doctor was talking about they've been doing that procedure since the 80s. And all I keep thinking about is, how the heck did they do that in the 80s? Like, what? Like, they're using cameras and computers now that didn't exist. So, look, you're right. I remember when an ACL tear was career-ending for a running back. Now it's, maybe back by the playoffs half the time. It still seems jarring to hear Kittle back this fast. And I do think that there has to be some expectation of, okay, being back versus being fully back. Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers both talked about playing the quarterback position the season after they injured their Achilles and how much time it took them. the 49ers are going to be the ultimate what might have been, what could have been, coulda, shoulda, woulda story of this generation. Because certainly if they had ever been healthy enough at the right time, they should have gotten that Super Bowl somewhere. They should have been amongst those teams. But to your point, I do think you're right. The ceiling is the Super Bowl, sort of. I mean, I think right now if I took a healthy 49ers and stacked them up against a healthy Rams or a healthy Seahawks, they're still the third best team in their own division. That's what's crazy about this. The 49ers have had the injury bug, which you can't help, much like the Chargers have had the injury bug over and over and over again. Sometimes you're just bit by that bug, and no matter what, you just never can get through it healthy at the right time. What's unfortunate for the 49ers is I think even in that process, now much of their window has actually closed to me. I think they're still a championship caliber team, but they need to be the healthy one while other teams around them get nicked up. They need a little bit of help from the rest of their division to just be the best team in the NFC West, Carolina. That's a much different conversation than we were having about the 49ers a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
100%. I mean, that division itself is a gauntlet. And then you zoom out and look at the rest of the NFC. Like, it is an uphill climb. I think for any team not named the Rams right now, because I would say if the Rams are a very safe bet to win the NFC and to get to the Super Bowl and to even win the Super Bowl. But I think it's an uphill climb for every other team, especially any other team in the NFC West. And I know it sounds obvious, right? Got to stay healthy. Got to keep your best players on the field. Got to keep your stars on the field. That logic applies to 32 teams in the NFL. That logic applies to any sport anywhere. It just feels like we need to mention it with the San Francisco 49ers because they have been so banged up as of late. And I almost feel unfair bringing that up because I did just mention last year they were so banged up. They had so many injuries up and down that team. You look at the defense, how many injuries they sustained, but the defense was still able to be a playoff caliber defense. This team was still a playoff team. This team still won a playoff game, even though they were as banged up as they were. So I kind of feel both ways about it, Fitzy, of yes, they have to stay healthy. In order to hit their ceiling, they have to be healthy. But also at the same time, they've been able to weather the storm even as one of the more banged up teams in the National Football League.
That is fair. They have been very good even when banged up. Certainly going to be a wild year. Also, another piece of NFL news to get you caught up on. Nick Chubb, the former Brown and Texas running back, announces his retirement from the NFL in a social media post Friday night. Quote, "Today's the day I've been avoiding for a while. 12-year-old me could never imagine this day. And 30-year-old me is wondering where all the time is gone." That's just part of a beautiful announcement he made on social media. Four-time Pro Bowler, you see it there, announcing his retirement from the NFL only at the age of 30, which I know 30 is that magic number that we hold for running backs. But Caroline, we've seen so many backs still have success post-30. So Nick Chubb decided to call it quits. His quote, "I've known for some time, but I'm finally ready to share that I'm done playing football. I wanted to end my career on a healthy note along with the winning season, and I was able to do that." Really beautiful for him to choose his terms and walk away the way he wants to.
I mean, Nick Chubb is just such a good dude. And Nick Chubb was so electric when he was healthy. I mean, in NFL history, there are 3 players that average 5 yards per carry, 70 rushing yards per game, and have scored 50 or more touchdowns in their career. Nick Chubb is one of them, along with Barry Sanders and Jim Brown. So pretty good company to share. Nick Chubb was just such a joy to watch, going back to his time at Georgia and his time in the NFL. Unfortunately, he just suffered 2 gruesome injuries that just make you sick and make your heart hurt for him physically, mentally, emotionally, everything that he had to go through and enduring those injuries and fighting back to come back from some of those injuries. So I think Nick Chubb may be one of those players that we look back on and think, what could have happened if he was able to stay healthy? But congratulations to him on a heck of a career, and congratulations to him for being able to say goodbye on his own terms.
I absolutely love the last portion of his statement. "Health is the real wealth. I end my career in a great place. Even though there are some things I wish had happened differently, I can say I have no regrets." Real quick, I just got this breaking news. Want to make sure everybody gets this. This is just coming into Yahoo Sports Daily. The Cleveland Browns have named their starting quarterback and it is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson will be the starting quarterback. He has been named QB1. Adam Schefter, Justin, Deshaun Watson has been named Cleveland's starting quarterback for week 1 at Jacksonville. Caroline, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks. I think the Browns put everything in place to make this happen. I think they made it clear that whatever they've seen behind the scenes made this the clear decision. I even think the tone in some of the ways that Coach spoke about Deshaun Watson yesterday echoed this, and now today we get the announcement. It is official. Deshaun Watson, much to the chagrin of the Cleveland Browns fan base, will start week 1 at Jacksonville.
I don't get it. Like, I would love for somebody to explain this decision to me because I don't understand it in the slightest. From a PR perspective, the fans hate him. The fans boo him into oblivion. And he just made it worse with a dreadful atomic press conference, calling out the fan base, showing, zero regard for other people, showing that Deshaun Watson just simply does not get it. He just doesn't have a grip on reality. So there's that side of it. And then there's the football side of it. And that is Deshaun Watson is terrible. Deshaun Watson doesn't look like a starting quarterback in the NFL against a bunch of backups in a preseason game. Deshaun Watson's quarterback rating was 14 over the weekend in a preseason game. 14. Just for reference there, I went back and looked at some of the quarterback ratings for players last year. The lowest it goes is the 53rd ranked quarterback rating last year, and that was Brandon Allen, who had a quarterback rating of 28. Double of what we saw from Deshaun Watson in a preseason game. Brandon Allen, I didn't even know he was still in the league, to be honest with you. So I don't understand this decision from a football perspective. I don't understand this decision from a PR perspective. I don't understand this decision of what this means for the future plan for the Cleveland Browns perspective. I don't understand this at all.
I think all of this speaks to one thing. It's not Deshaun, it's Shedeur. This is the second coaching staff in Cleveland that has had the chance to make an easy decision and has told us all that what they're seeing behind the scenes doesn't make it easy. Because you're right, Deshaun Watson looked terrible in second half preseason action and then handled the press conference about as poorly as I've ever seen a starting quarterback ever handle any press conference. And he's still the starter. Not because he's capable, but because I think it speaks to the fact that the Browns are telling you they do not believe Shedeur Sanders can play quarterback in the NFL. That is the real message I take away from this. We have more on this later in the show. We're going to hit this from every possible angle, but coming up, another wild weekend in the WNBA. We'll get your recap of it with Dunker Spot coming up next.
Are you surprised by this, that you still love it this much, that it still connects with you this deeply after all these years?
No, it doesn't surprise me, actually. It really doesn't. But I've had to structure the relationship differently. Before, wrestling was everything. And coming back this time, though, I've really, really, truly just tried to focus on the enjoyment of all of it.
I don't think anyone would have lived up to the expectations that we as a population placed on Arch. We were imagining that this guy's going to come in and immediately be amazing and immediately win the Heisman and lead his team to a national title. And then right out of the gate, he has to play maybe the nastiest defense in college football with first rounders all over the field. And believe it or not, first time starting quarterbacks usually not very good against that sort of defense.
You see the isolated one-on-one routes, and when like the footwork is there, the timing and the space, it's like poetic, it's elegant, it's artistic, it's aesthetically pleasing, it's all that type of stuff. And then some of the acrobatic catches were just simply sensational. But he was just really frustrating to me when watching him as a prospect. He's one of these players that I so understand how you can fall in love and obsess and the high-end outcomes, and if it all hits, he's going to look like one of the route runners that we absolutely love.
You add Cam Boozer, who is going to be good right away. You trade for Jeremy Grant, who had a resurgence last season in Portland. Cedric Coward year 2. Ty Jerome wasn't healthy last year, but he was great when he was at the end of the year. You bring him back this year in full. Adding Isaiah Stewart off the bench, a versatile big man who can shoot threes and offer defense. This is a deep Grizzlies roster. Like, there's going to be good players not getting minutes.
Caitlin Clark put on a show in the Fever's 113.90 shellacking of the Sky. 8 made three-pointers are a career high. Big weekend in the W, and we are pleased to be joined by our teammates from Dunker Spot. Nekias and Steve hanging out with us. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we feeling on this beautiful morning? Caitlin going off. All right, we're going to get straight to it, okay? What did Indiana do differently to get Caitlin going after the 2 losses? Nekias, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I think the first thing that popped for me was just how high the screens were set for Caitlin. It was around an average of 27 feet in the prior 2 matchups, or prior 2 games heading into this was around 24, 25, somewhere in that range. And so I think with Chicago trying to lean into more of the full court pressure, you got more of those high early drag screens. First possession of the game was Caitlin getting a high screen with a flattened floor, getting to her left and getting to a 3. And it's like, okay, well, this might be the tone. Season high 22 drives for her as well. So I think just the early screens kind of perked up her aggression overall. That just kind of led to a consistent attack from her.
Just to bounce off what Nekias said, I think there was a consistent aggression. I thought it was good for Indiana to kind of have that first half. It's kind of been a little bit tough the last couple games after this hot stretch, but Caitlin Clark being able to just kind of explore the space, get downhill, get to her spots, and then mixing in the threes. And when the 3 ball is going, it's a really tough blend to deal with. She attacks space, she's working to get downhill, she'll hit you, but then that sidestep, that step back is always ever present, and the passing will always stick out. So I think there was just a command that Caitlin Clark had in this game that really built throughout it.
I mean, just that shot right there. She is absolutely lethal. And obviously her sophomore season was cut short due to injury, but now we see Caitlin Clark being, a key cog of the best offense in the WNBA. She now has more career games with 30-plus points and 10-plus assists than every other player in WNBA history combined, which is absolutely absurd. Nekias, we'll start with you. How have you seen Caitlin's game evolve this season?
I think it's the downhill comfort, because I think one of the more fun subplots of the Caitlin Clark experience has been how teams have tried to treat her. In year 1, we're putting 2 on the ball all the time. In year 2, even through the injury cut short season, it was, okay, we're not going to trap you as much. We're just going to switch a bunch and let's see what you do with that. In year 3, there's been more of a mix of coverages, and that's largely because Caitlin is doing a better job of diagnosing things. If you don't trap her, she's become such a good driver, and she's become such more comfortable in the middle of the floor and getting to mid-range shots that you can't really play drop against her. And like the switches, she's doing a better job of picking those apart. Now you ramp the pressure back up, that unlocks the playmaking. And so just her being able to be more comfortable inside the arc and diagnose coverages, those have probably been the 2 biggest things for me for how she's grown this year.
Yeah, it's just the comfort. I think you've seen just an idea and an ability to get to her mid-range jump shot a lot more, to feel comfortable driving and hitting first, not just like a push-off till I get to a step back. No, I might hit you trying to get this little right-hand flip shot going. And so being able to have a little bit more wiggle, being able to have a little bit more comfort, and having counters to what defenses want to do, as Nekias said, I think is what has allowed her to just kind of progress and stay strong throughout this season.
All right, before I ask this question, I just want to be transparent here. What part of the reason I love listening to the Dunker Spot is because y'all make smart basketball sound so effortless. I just want to be in the group chat with you, and I want you guys to give me the answers to all the tough questions. But here's the problem. It's a little like when I cheated in calculus in high school. It's going to sound too good. You just got, just dumb it down a little bit for me when you give me the cheat code, because y'all talking ball makes me happy. All right, so let's stick there about talking ball for a second. I keep making this point in a very general way. I'll ask you to make it in a specific way. Does the world owe Stephanie White an apology right now? Because it felt like a couple of months ago, a lot of people had a lot to say about all the things that wasn't right about Indiana. Now it looks pretty right.
Yes, they do owe Stephanie White an apology. And I think it's because you need to go through the regular season to kind of have the highs and lows and understand, okay, what can our team do well? What is our team struggling with? What are we trying to get to? And you don't get Kelsey Mitchell having this streak. You don't get the consistency from Aaliyah Boston. You don't get this growth from Caitlin Clark without the rough moments. So being able to have a team that, okay, offensively, we were trying to go with more movement. We're trying to have more flow. We can't just rely on Caitlin and pick and roll. Teams are being physical. Now you see they're kind of like playing jazz out there. Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell improvising. Aaliyah Boston always steady. Michaela Timpson in the starting lineup being able to space in different places. Lexi Hull adds a different punch. So for Stephanie White, it's kind of saying, okay, maybe we can't do this well. Maybe this isn't going great, but I still have the vision and understanding of what my players can do, and we're going to get to that point. I think there was not a lot of patience given for the rough patch. And so I think Stephanie White, should kind of just take a bow and say, hey, I kind of knew what I was doing. I put us in the right position, and now we're putting ourselves in a place to thrive in the playoffs.
I think just to quickly bounce off of that, Steve, because you nailed it. This is a Fever team that was an overtime period away from the finals last year. And so you're already looking to build counters so you'll be more successful in the playoffs. You are now trying to re-implement Caitlin Clark, not just a role player. You're implementing Caitlin Clark back into the fold because of how much time she missed. So, like, there's a general we want to evolve, but also we have to evolve while also making sure Caitlin is comfortable within this because she is such a big part of what we do. I don't think enough credence was led to the fact that that is a lot to navigate on top of everything else that comes with the Fever. And so for them to look like this, and as Caroline mentioned earlier, not just the best offense in the W, this is pretty easily going to be the best offensive rating of all time. If this holds, like, not an easy thing to do. She absolutely deserves her credit for what she's done.
I'll reiterate what Fitzy said. You two are just both such brilliant basketball minds. But of course, as people who cover the W, we understand it's not always just basketball talk when it comes to this league, as much as we would love it to be. Yet another controversy in the WNBA. Fever Sky game on Sunday. Enes Kanter was there. He got into it with Natasha Cloud. He was escorted out of the building. And of course, we know Enes Kanter is one that has said that he's going to declare for the WNBA draft. This has gotten absolutely out of hand. And Steve, we'll start with you. I will name Dunker Spot the new co-commissioners of the WNBA. How do you move forward with this? And how do you address the culture wars that have been going on with the WNBA?
Get him banned. He's a loser. He's a bozo. Women's sports is too important for this to be the dominant topic, in my opinion. I don't want to give him any energy. So for me, it's just get him out of here. Get this out of here. Women's sports is too important for this nonsense. And people are being harmed by it, and they should not.
I'm right there with you, Steve. Like, this is an obvious grift that is unfairly putting the trans community in the crosshairs. And this is a community that just wants to exist and enjoy the players and the teams and the sport that they love without having their humanity questioned, without being ostracized, without being flat out harmed. And so for this to be as big of a deal in the news cycle, I understand why it is, but I feel like the attention is the point. The attention is the currency for a bozo like this. And so, like, I don't particularly want to give him more. And so I think the easiest thing, it's unfortunate that the interaction with Natasha Cloud happened. Now that it has, I hope that is enough of a window for the league to say, okay, you are no longer allowed in any of our buildings. We can move forward from there. And if that does happen, or even if it doesn't, there's going to be another video made. There's going to be more tweets made. There's going to be more grifting that's going to happen. Collectively, take away the airspace of this. I have seen the pick and roll defense jokes and I laugh at them, but ultimately the attention is the point. And so hopefully this is just a ban and let him and other bozos scream into the ether without any more of this nonsense.
All right, so let's stop giving it oxygen. We'll get back to the game. All right, so I'm going to go to the East at this point. Saturday, Angel Reese, 31 points, 14 boards. Atlanta Dream clinch a playoff berth. Have we seen enough proof now that Atlanta's offseason trade for Angel was the best move? Like, was this the key move in the offseason, Steve?
I think getting her has helped elevate the Atlanta Dream's compete level. So this team gets after it. Angel Reese, Ryan Howard, Jordan Canada, they're going to defend. Angel Reese has just kind of made sure they continue to compete. I think she's grown offensively throughout this season. I'm going to set screens. I'm going to roll. I'm going to work on finishing. I'm going to hit people in the post. Give me the ball. Let me try and get a finish. I'm going to be really just a menace defensively. Active hands, high activity, get a steal. If I get a rebound, I can push. I can attack on my own. And that's kind of led the Atlanta Dream, while it's been an up and down season at times, to kind of have a little bit of a metronome at times to where, okay, we understand that maybe we can get back into this game. Maybe we can send a message. I think what Angel Reese has done has been steady. I'm just going to be physical. I'm going to make sure I make my shots in the paint. I'm going to be consistent. And that's breathed a new life into Atlanta Dream team to kind of set them up for postseason success. Last year, a lot of offense, a lot of pace, a lot of tempo, got to the playoffs. Wasn't as fun. I don't think that'll be the same story this season.
No, I think just to bounce off of that, Steve, like we talked about Angel Reese a little bit on Friday because she had the Fever game where she starts 0 for 6. She misses the putback. They ultimately sent the game into overtime. And then to follow that up with awesome game against the Las Vegas Aces, in which she was the best big on the floor in a game featuring the best player ever. awesome game against Los Angeles Sparks in which she literally did not miss. And then you follow that up with a career high 31 points. I just love the resilience from her. Steve already nailed the notes about how dominant the defense has been. It's nearly 4 steals a game over this 3-game run for Angel Reese. She's converting 72% of her twos over this 3-game run, to the point about the finishing, the seals, the overall physicality. It has been a lot of fun watching her get more comfortable as the season has gone on.
Cannot have y'all on the show and not touch on the reigning champion, Las Vegas Aces. They get the win over Toronto 88-78, but not all great news coming out of that game. Nekias Smith suffered a non-contact knee injury. She left this game early. Nekias, what is the panic meter for Aces fans right now with this Nekias Smith injury?
Ooh, for Aces fans, probably like a 5 or a 6. Like, this is someone that Steve and I have talked about as a most improved player candidate, just because of the growth we've seen for her offensively, the different things the Aces have tried with her defensively, and just the overall force that she plays with, opposite of A'ja Wilson. For the Aces themselves, probably closer to like a 4, because I think, one, you hope that the injury isn't serious. I hope all the best for Nekias Smith. Hopefully it's like a hyperextension or something. If this is like a season-ending deal or a long-term deal, the only silver linings I can think of on this front for the Aces is that it does allow them to lean further into the A'ja Wilson, Bree Turner front court that has a plus 25 net rating in nearly 200 minutes together. And Becky Hammon has been harping on the defense of the Aces pretty much all year long. They have a 94 defensive rating with A'ja and Bree Turner on the floor. It allows them to get into more switching, allows just a better grasp of like defensive versatility overall. And so like maybe that opens a pathway for that, but ultimately you don't want that to come via injury. So more than anything, I just hope Nekias Smith is okay.
I also hope she's good. I would say 4.75 on the panic meter. She was really strong. She was really strong and good for this team. And the reason I got so specific there is because you're allowing Becky Hammon the option to figure something out. And when Becky Hammon is given the option to figure something out, she usually does. And so they have Cheyenne, they have Bree Turner, they have bigs that can kind of place, they have A'ja Wilson. They can also pivot maybe to small ball, might have more of an emphasis on defense because we don't have Nekias Smith. So we have to kind of shake things up. We have to try different things. That could be the interesting point. It's been an interesting way to kind of see different players off the Aces bench kind of show up in different ways. We've seen Maya Yamamoto play very well. So do the Aces now have an opportunity, an unfortunate opportunity, because Nekias Smith was very good and very important for them, but can we just kind of get different reps and put ourselves in a position to once again get a ring and make the world mad?
You guys can hear and see more of the Dunker Spot Tuesdays and Fridays all across the Yahoo Sports Network. I'm just saying, so Caroline and I get in the group text with y'all. We text you and we ask you the basic question. You give us the really smart stuff. And then all of a sudden, people are going to think we're brilliant like you guys. That's the way it works. Like, you guys just, at this point, I'm straight up cheating off you in calculus. I should not be in the class. I'm just sitting next to the smart kids in the class, looking over, and I'm writing down the answers.
I got bad news. I'm a double tapper in the group chat. I'm so sorry.
All right, we're going to work on that. We're going to work on that.
We're just going to get a thumbs up from Steve and leave us on red.
No. If he's double tapping me, it'd be like, what are your thoughts on it? It's going to be the thumbs down. He's like, I'm not giving you the answer. I now understand. Passive-aggressive thumbs down coming all the time from Steve. Check out the Dunker Spot. Nobody does it better than these boys. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.
It's absolutely great stuff from them, as always. One of my favorite listens. Coming up, breaking news. We know who the starter is. We'll tell you what it means next.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so, is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Marquette, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
They're my top offense heading into this year. I think you had them in your top 10 as well.
I mean, yeah, I had them 4. You had them number 1. So you did mog me on the offensive rankings for Dallas. But yeah, we're both really excited about this unit. And I mean, what's there to not be excited about? As long as the 2 receivers are healthy and Dak Prescott's healthy, and some of the role players taking a step forward. I mean, this team is going to absolutely smoke people on offense this year.
What a weird quote. Like, we have the upside to be great. We could be really bad too. Is that that's a real quote, right? He actually said that?
He said that, and I gotta agree. I think it's maybe more likely they end up on the bad side. I'm not expecting a lot of wins for the Bulls this season, but they are in a fun zone right now, which is young team, low expectations, but probably a fun team.
Adam Schefter tweets out, Justin, Deshaun Watson has been named Cleveland's starting quarterback for week 1 at Jacksonville. That is the breaking news. We wondered how it would play out this morning. We have an answer. And Caroline, the more I look at this and the more I think about this, Frank Schwab tweeting out, our buddy, friend of the show, I've covered the NFL for about 25 years. This might be the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen from a franchise. The more I look at this, the more, to me, the evidence becomes clear. Not my opinion, but the evidence becomes clear that Shedeur Sanders is simply not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I keep looking at just, if we were doing a science experiment and we're stacking the information, so all we have is the information right now. You have 2 coaching staffs that have both had the opportunity to just do the easy thing and give it to Shedeur. And everybody wanted to say the first coaching staff had other reasons, other motivations, other whatevers. For some reason, Stefanski wasn't going to play Shedeur, whether it was because you believed it was, something that he had, an agenda he had against Shedeur, whatever. He's out of the building. Now a new coach comes in. That new coach comes in and watches a starting quarterback have the most pathetic effort I've ever seen in a preseason game from an established starter in the second half against backups. It was absolutely atrocious. And then he goes to the podium and handles it in the worst way we've ever seen a starting quarterback handle that moment. And the next day, he's named the starter. We want to make this about Deshaun, and I understand that Deshaun is part of the equation, but I keep looking at the math and saying the simple math here is if Shedeur was even remotely capable, if in practice, if in meetings, if in the facility, he was giving literally any hope to Todd Monken, Todd Monken had the easiest off-ramp we've ever seen to simply name Shedeur the starter, and he didn't. Maybe, just maybe, through all of this, the real answer is that the coaching staff has looked at it, and as bad as Deshaun is, they believe Shedeur is drastically worse. And if that's the case, that's the only explanation I can use to get me to Shedeur Sanders starting for the Browns.
I hear that,
Deshaun
but I will
Watson starting
ask
for the
you,
Browns.
are we sure Deshaun Watson is a starting quarterback? Because I'm not. After what I saw from Deshaun against the Bills, I don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Deshaun Watson was 5 of 12 for 36 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. That is good for a 14.6 quarterback rating. Just for reference, Shedeur had an 87.1 quarterback rating, which isn't really anything to write home about, but it's at least serviceable as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, that's 1 game sample size, I know. But against a bunch of backups, Deshaun went 3 and out, interception, turnover on downs. Against a bunch of backups in a preseason game. Deshaun Watson has won 1 single game in a Browns uniform going back to 2024. Deshaun Watson has, 19 touchdowns, 15 interceptions in a Browns uniform? He's getting paid more than $40 million a year to do that. I hear you that this might be a message from the coaching staff, from the Browns organization, that Shedeur just doesn't have it. Shedeur is just not a starter in the NFL. I don't think Deshaun Watson is a starting quarterback in the NFL. And Shedeur Sanders comes with a lot less baggage than Deshaun Watson does. Shedeur Sanders isn't going to get booed by the entire stadium. Shedeur Sanders is not going to stir up controversy at the podium in the way that Deshaun Watson did in that post-game press conference after their preseason game. So I hear you, I get it, and it has felt clear and evident from the beginning, all of the messaging coming out from the Browns camp, that Deshaun Watson was more than likely going to be the starter. But at what point do you have to change your mind after evidence that you see in front of you? After all of the backlash that we've heard from the fan base, the Cleveland Browns fan base, booing their own starting quarterback, what more evidence do you need to see of Deshaun Watson looking truly terrible in a preseason game? What more do they need to see to say, you know what, we thought Deshaun was going to be our starter, but at some point, for the sake of our franchise, for the sake of our fan base, for the sake of our jobs, we have to pivot.
I guess my two things can be true. I also don't believe Deshaun Watson is a starter. But for my money, I always put myself in the shoes of a coach trying to figure out what to do in these situations. Todd Monken takes his first job as a head coach in the NFL. And his first opportunity is stand on the sideline and lead his organization. And now he watches his quarterback just absolutely blow it while he stands in a stadium where that quarterback is getting destroyed every single week. Now, maybe there's some movement here where it's like, hey, let's start him in Jacksonville so that if it goes poorly, that's not at home. I don't know. But I look at all of this and say, if you're Todd Monken and you're the head coach and you looked around and you thought, man, Deshaun Watson sucks. Man, the crowd hates him. The city hates him. The city's going to hate me for playing him. If you look at all of that information and you still get to Deshaun Watson as your starter, can't that be an indication that no matter how bad Deshaun is, Shedeur's drastically worse? I mean, that's a part of this equation. I just think everybody refuses to, not everybody, you and I, but the general population seems to refuse to accept at least the premise that maybe Shedeur Sanders is trash. Maybe Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback is just awful. Maybe they see him in practice every day and in meetings every day, and they look at him and they say, my God, he can't do that. I don't know. But I have a hard time believing that a new coaching staff trying to win over a city, trying to win over a locker room, trying to win at your core as a new coach, and you're establishing a culture, you have to win. So now you're putting in somebody that the organization is going to watch get booed and the crowd's going to be against. You're mounting all of these things that are against you. To do that, in my mind, the only logical answer is you must have absolute proof in your mind as a coach that Shedeur just can't do it. I'm not in practice. I can't know it. We can't know it. But the coaches certainly, if they'd seen anything that even made it close, I think they would have named Shedeur Sanders the starter because it's easier on everybody. The fact that they didn't has to, at some level, be a statement for what they've seen that we haven't seen from Shedeur in my mind.
I think that the mistake that we're making here is trying to make logic of something that there is just no logic in it. We are trying to rationalize and make sense of something that doesn't make sense at all. Because the Browns told you. Jimmy Haslam literally said into a microphone, we swung and missed on Deshaun Watson. What Deshaun Watson just gave you, what was it, Saturday night, Friday night, whenever that game was, gave you on a silver platter an out. A reason to not start him, a reason to close the Deshaun Watson era and just wash your hands of him and move on. Because they've already acknowledged that they made a mistake. They already acknowledged. Jimmy Haslam told us we swung and we missed. So they're telling us, they're telling you and me and the fan base everywhere, we made the wrong decision. And that is clear as day for anybody with eyeballs and a brain that they made a mistake doing that. So what Deshaun Watson gave you was an out and you're not going to take it? I can't make sense of that.
Unless you look around and you look at your 5th round draft quarterback in Deshaun Watson and you say, man, he's not even as good as Bailey Zappi, who was a 4th round draft pick. And I'm just saying that that's the part of this. Like, at least a coaching staff is in my mind, if you're starting Deshaun, you're saying that you don't believe that Shedeur has a spot in this league at all as a starting quarterback. All right. From a team that doesn't have a starting quarterback to one that absolutely does, but we're still asking questions about his comments. Solomon Wilcots, the great Solomon Wilcots, going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on Burrow and the Bengals. What's the biggest difference between college fantasy football and NFL fantasy football?
Biggest difference is going to be the player pool. And we're doing Power 4 only here at Yahoo. That's 68 teams. You have 32 in the NFL. You know the entire rosters of these teams. When it comes to college, there's so much turnover and transfer portal moves, plus graduations, that every roster is in flux from year to year, and you're constantly reestablishing that continuity.
Somebody told me that I think this is just a great line. Said that you can't trust, obviously, the SEC to police the SEC and the Big Ten to police the Big Ten. So why doesn't the SEC police the Big Ten and the Big Ten can police the SEC? And I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Well, Ross, let me tell you
genius.
something.
Whoever said that is a genius. Make them commissioner of college
Man,
football.
Please, God, let that happen.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the receivers as well. Tetero McMillan, I think star.
Awesome.
I think I was very high on him coming out of the draft. I think he's done nothing but make me solidify what I thought he could be. True X, got some yak ability as well.
Yep.
He was, racking up explosive plays on inbreakers and just really, really cool player. Just you don't see athletes this big and this fluid, and that's what's really fun about him.
What gives you confidence that Bo Nix can bring another Lombardi trophy to Denver?
I love the way he competes. And when you're in a game, you're never out of a game. And that's how I measure quarterbacks. When it's 2 minutes on the clock and we have to have a drive, who is the guy in that huddle? Those traits where he can just flip a switch when you need it, down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and here comes Bo. So I love that about him.
Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow says he's trying to manifest a Super Bowl this season. I'm tired of saying next year, next year, next year. This is it. Life is too short to keep pushing things down the road. That was part of his press conference statement that had plenty to say about. Solomon Wilcots of Bleav in Bengals joins us now. Also hosts the opening drive on SiriusXM NFL. Solomon, thanks for being here. Burrow didn't mince words. Dan Orlovsky, we all know, quote, tweeted it and said, quote, win or I'm out. That's how he reads in to Joe's words. What did you make of Burrow's comments?
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow, and first of all, thanks for having me, Jason and Caroline. I think Joe Burrow has been very clear throughout his entire career. Look, he puts everything that he has into trying to win and trying to make this franchise a consistent winner. In so much in the second season, he took them to a Super Bowl, despite the fact they were 10-7 during the regular season that year. And then in 2021, 2022, back-to-back AFC title games. And so this comes on the heels of 3 consecutive years of not even making the playoffs and doing everything he can to keep Jamar Chase and T. Higgins around him. He's saying, look, now is the time to get this done, and we don't have tomorrows. I don't want to talk about what's going to happen years from now. He knows that the NFL is an acronym, which means not for long, right? A career can go by very quickly, and he's about wanting to get this done now. And I think the underlying message, if we can't get it done here, then maybe somewhere else it could happen if it doesn't happen here.
So I think that is a fair way to interpret it. I think we can also go back to last season when Joe Burrow talked about how he hasn't had as much fun playing football, that he wasn't as happy playing football. And there was some concern level there that maybe retirement was going to be a choice for Joe Burrow, a la kind of like an Andrew Luck premature retirement from an elite quarterback. What is the concern level in Cincinnati that could be an option for Joe Burrow is retirement?
Yeah, I think Cincinnati Bengals fans just don't want to live in that world where a quarterback this good is willing to walk away from his career and walk away from the franchise. But you have to live in that world. If you're realistic, I think you've got to look to Carson Palmer, who did it following the 2010 season. Going into 2011, he did not want to come back to this team. He was a player who, like Joe Burrow, was taken with the first overall pick and decided, you know what? If you guys are going to go ahead and pursue this, you're going to have to do it without me. I'd rather play elsewhere. Carson Palmer came to that final conclusion for a number of different reasons. But at the end of the day, I think you are hearing that in Joe Burrow's sort of questioning when he said, I'm not having fun. I think some people oh, is this supposed to be fun? It's your job. He didn't mean it on that level. He meant, look, I'm getting hurt. I'm dealing with injuries every single year. And if we're not winning, if we're not close to getting into the playoffs, if we're not playing in meaningful games in December, then why are we here? What are we doing this for? And I think he was sending a message to the organization and to the fan base and to anyone who would listen that, look, if we're not going to be playing meaningful games, then maybe we all should reconsider what we're actually doing here. I really do think he believes that this is a year where they will be playing in meaningful games.
Well, and to the organization's credit, it's not that they haven't tried. Certainly, they've invested money in key positions. They've tried to fix the offensive line in the draft over and over and over again. Like they've tried. This year, there was a big emphasis on the defense, particularly. Do you think they've done enough to put a defense around him this year that can start to have more success for them?
I think if you just look at it and say, okay, in one offseason, what did we do? And you can say, wow, they did more than even what I had expected. When you give up a 10th overall pick to get Dexter Lawrence from the New York Football Giants, I don't think they could have gotten a better player with that 10th overall pick, a force multiplier that is Sexy Dex, who can make the other players around him better. But I do think if you look at it, say, from year to year leading into 2026, I think that's where you say, wow, okay, we could have done more. There have been things that letting a Jesse Bates get out of here, not doing other things to get other players in sooner so that when you get a player like Dexter Lawrence, maybe he's the final piece and not the first piece. I do think those questions are on the table to be asked. But I do think in one offseason, Boye Mafe, Jonathan Allen, Sexy Dex, and Brian Cook from the Kansas City Chiefs, you could say that the Cincinnati Bengals have maybe done more than what we've seen them do in one offseason. And you have to be very much impressed with what they've been able to do.
I will give them credit for taking those swings to elevate and to improve the side of the football that desperately needed it. But those are not the only changes that we could see from the Bengals this year. We saw Dan Pitcher, offensive coordinator, called plays for the Bengals in the preseason game against the Bears on Saturday. Normally, head coach Zach Taylor calls plays. Can we see a change at play caller? That is Dan Pitcher going to take over play calling duties? And what is the significance of that, in your opinion?
I would say the chances are low, Caroline. I really would. And here's the thing. I think Zach Taylor's smart enough and good enough to say, hey, Dan, we're going to let you call plays. It's a preseason game. But think about this. Over the last 5 seasons, I believe, Cincinnati Bengals are ranked top 10 in scoring. For the most of the time that Joe Burrow has been their quarterback from 2021 through 2025, they've averaged about 25 points a game. Offense isn't the problem in Cincinnati. Dan Pitcher isn't the problem, but he's not the answer. Zach Taylor has been really good. He and Joe Burrow have a very close and personal relationship. So I don't think they're going to try to fix what's not broken here, right? It is about Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor has gone toe-to-toe calling plays against Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes and have won those games. He's called plays against Sean McVay and the Rams and have won those games. Same with the San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, and they have won those games. That's not what's wrong with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's about defense, getting a defense to aid the cause of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow and what they're doing offensively. That's the part that's broken, that needs to be fixed, nothing else.
So the Ravens looked around at the result and said, not good enough, change coaches. Shocking to many of us. The Steelers looked around and said, not good enough, change coaches. Shocking to many of us. Even the Browns looked around and said, not good enough. The Bengals have continuity. Is that an advantage in your mind going into this season?
I think offensively it is. I don't think defensively the continuity is there. Remember, they did change defensive coordinators, right? Lou Anarumo is now calling plays with the Indianapolis Colts. So the continuity is on offense. Let's be clear. Continuity may be on special teams. Yeah, let's be clear. And now a second year with Al Golden. But you're talking new pieces at every level of the defense. And that was needed. I argue they should have did this last year. They should not have given Al Golden old pieces and expected new results because he got the same thing that Lou Anarumo got when they got rid of his 2 safeties, right, and Von Bell and Jesse Bates and DJ Reader up front on that defensive line. So the Bengals, I thought, were a year late in doing what they did this offseason. But Nonetheless, they did it. They knew they need edge rushers. They should have got a Boye Mafe to play opposite of Trey Hendrickson 1 year ago, right? They should have went and got a sexy Dex to replace DJ Reader in the middle of this defense 1 year ago. I'm just here to tell you, they did everything they needed to do this offseason. They just should have did it a year sooner. And they would have been in the playoffs 1 year ago. Nonetheless, we're here. I do think they've done enough. I do think this defense should be good enough to be in the middle of the pack to help them win the division or at least be playing in the postseason.
Speaking of the division, we had some breaking news within the last hour that the Cleveland Browns have named Deshaun Watson their starting quarterback. Solly, did the Browns get it right?
You know, this is like choosing between the lesser of two evils. And the optimal case, you would love to see a quarterback step up and command the QB1 job and do it in a convincing fashion. That's not what happened here. They're falling to sort of a default to Deshaun Watson. We have all this guaranteed money invested in him. If we were to cut him and release him, we would take over an $80 million cap hit, right? Dead cap hit. We have the money invested in him. He's the quarterback with the most pelts on the wall, even though it's been a while since we've seen him play at a high level. Got to go back to the 2020 season when he was one of the best quarterbacks in our league, but only have played, in 19 games in the last 5 years for the Cleveland Browns. However, more accomplishments at this level than, say, Shedeur Sanders. And because no one has stepped up to claim the job, let's go ahead and name Deshaun Watson our starting quarterback, despite the fact that he's getting booed when he's playing in games in our home stadium. So I'm not feeling good about it, but I do understand in some kind of really perverted way why they defaulted to Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback.
At some point, I look at all this, two different fan bases in two very different worlds, right? Bengals fans have a quarterback and can't figure out why they can't get the results. Browns fans can't figure out how to get a quarterback. What's more frustrating in your mind?
I think it's frustrating to have the quarterback, to know you have a winning quarterback in Joe Burrow and not even get to – you missed the playoffs 3 straight years? Since when has that happened? I mean, it's just – to me, I said, how hard is this? And I said this before the moves were made this offseason. How hard is it to build a team around a winning quarterback? I don't think it's that hard. I think our league is set up to help you win. It really is. If you lose, you get the highest pick. That's how they ended up with Joe Burrow in the first place, right? Not many other teams find it difficult to get a Joe Burrow or to get a Pat Mahomes. Once you get those guys, the rest should be easy. I'm sorry. This is not that difficult. We're giving you draft picks to get players. We're giving you $300 million in salary cap space to go out and acquire players. That's why the Rams have said, forget those picks. We got the quarterback. Let's go get some other players. And they're not willing. I mean, they're not really afraid to deal players to go get a Myles Garrett, to go get whoever they need to get to a Super Bowl and win. And that's how I believe it's not that complicated once you find the quarterback. The Rams have seen that. Think about the Seattle Seahawks. You win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold? That means you know how to build a team around the quarterback position. And so at the end of the day, if you already have the quarterback, it should not be that difficult. It should certainly be, I think, easy to get to the playoffs. It should not be difficult finding yourself as a perennial playoff team. Look at the Buffalo Bills. They have a good quarterback and of course, Josh Allen. They're in the playoffs every single year. They're just trying to figure out how to win a Super Bowl now. But getting to the playoffs is not that complicated when you have a great quarterback. And that's how the Bengals should really approach this every season.
Finding the quarterback is the hard part. Just ask Jets fans. Just ask Browns fans.
That's right.
Just ask Titans fans.
The Falcons. How about the Falcons, right?
The Falcons, great point. Just all of these teams trying to find or trying to figure out if they do have that franchise quarterback in the building With everything that you just said, Joe Burrow as an elite quarterback in this league, one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL. What outcome will make Bengals fans happy and satisfied this season?
Yeah, I think not only getting to the playoffs, and I think that is a very good question, Caroline, because getting to the playoffs, now you exhale a little bit, but not fully. You don't feel good about the fact that you made the playoffs. If you get there and go one and done, I think there's going to be a hue and cry, right? People are not going to be happy in the Queen City. But I think if they get to the playoffs and make a deep run, right, playing in the conference title game, I think they would want the whole bowl of wax. They would want to get and win a Super Bowl, get there and win it. The last time they did get to the Super Bowl, it was at SoFi Stadium in LA, and that's where this year's Super Bowl is being played. So Zach Taylor, remember, he worked with the Rams under Sean McVay. He knows what it's like to have a good relationship with a quarterback, to build it around the quarterback, but he also knows how important it is now to build around Joe Burrow. Is it about keeping him healthy? Yes. So they're putting the quarterback more under center. You're going to see them rely a little bit more on the run game, try to create big, explosive plays in the pass game coming off of play action. Some of the nuanced things that they're doing with this football team that I do believe will make a difference.
You guys can check him out on Bleav in Bengals. Obviously, follow him on Twitter, X at Solomon's Wisdom. Huge fan, man. Just such an honor to get to talk to you today. This has been a blast. We really appreciate your time, Solomon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Jason, Caroline, thank you for having me. All the best to you. Thank you.
Great stuff
Thank
from
you so
Solomon
much.
Wilcots. It's going to be a great year for Cincinnati. Coming up, some wow factor headlines you need to hear. We'll tell you about them next.
Are you surprised by this, that you still love it this much, that it still connects with you this deeply after all these years?
No, it doesn't surprise me, actually. It really doesn't. But I've had to structure the relationship differently. Before, wrestling was everything. In coming back this time, though, I've really, really, truly just tried to focus on the enjoyment of all of it.
I don't think anyone would have lived up to the expectations that we as a population placed on Arch. We were imagining that this guy's going to come in and immediately be amazing and immediately win the Heisman and lead his team to a national title. And then right out of the gate, he has to play maybe the nastiest defense in college football with first rounders all over the field. And believe it or not, first time starting quarterbacks usually not very good against that sort of defense.
You see the isolated one-on-one routes, and when like the footwork is there, the timing and the space, it's like poetic, it's elegant, it's artistic, it's aesthetically pleasing, it's all that type of stuff. And then some of the acrobatic catches were just simply sensational. But he was just really frustrating to me when watching him as a prospect. He's one of these players that I so understand how you can fall in love and obsess and the high-end outcomes, and if it all hits, he's going to look like one of the route runners that we absolutely love.
You add Cam Boozer, who is going to be good right away. You trade for Jeremy Grant, who had a resurgence last season in Portland. Cedric Coward year two. Ty Jerome wasn't healthy last year, but he was great when he was at the end of the year. You bring him back this year in full. Adding Isaiah Stewart off the bench, a versatile big man who can shoot threes and offer defense. This is a deep Grizzlies roster. Like, there's going to be good players not getting minutes.
Klay Thompson plans to sign a 2-year deal worth nearly $13 million with the Heat after he clears waivers. At per Shams, the deal expected to include a player option in the second season. Time to do a little going Owen. We love to do that on this show. This is where we take a look at some of the headlines and we figure out if we're going to go full Owen Wilson on them. And if we are, you'll hear Owen or Caroline give us the perfect wow. Caroline, give us your wow.
Wow.
Owen, give us your... Man, I can't tell the difference. I can't. Look, if you don't get voiceover work for Owen Wilson, I don't know what's going wrong. So, all right. So, is this wow
my
factor
agent
to you? Yeah, that is fact. So, Wyman, what do you do? Are you giving this a wow? I can't do it right.
It does not get a wow from me. It's not nothing. we've talked so much about what the Heat needs. Yes, getting Bam and Giannis and that defensive duo, it's going to be stifling, but who the heck is scoring points for the Miami Heat? So what do? You go out and you bring in Klay Thompson. He's averaging 18 points a game last year. He's great from the three-point line. So it's not nothing. Absolutely not. And also, I think it's important to point out, even though Klay is, 35, 36 years old, he has hit the 65-game threshold in each of the last 4 seasons. He's been available. That's also not nothing. But this doesn't all of a sudden make Miami the best team in the East. This doesn't make Miami, at least in my mind, a top 3 team in the East. So it's not nothing. And I think, smart move for Miami to go out and add some offense and some scoring, some reliable scoring in Klay Thompson. But this doesn't tip the Heat over the edge, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely gets a wow from Owen.
Wow.
But not a good wow. It's more like a wow.
No.
We're still doing this Klay thing? Like, all right, it's fine. He's going to have some nights, and we're all going to watch him, and then we're going to talk about how great it is a few times, and we're going to be like, oh, yeah. Like, Klay Thompson has reached the spot. How many people inject true serum in your veins if you're not a hoop head? How many people were like, oh, wow, Klay was in Dallas last year? Like, that's where we are with Klay now. We're at that spot where we bounce around. He goes to Miami. It'll be fun. You'll see him take some shots because you're watching, because you want to see Giannis, and then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, Klay's here too. Like it's more of a wow to me that we've even gotten to the, oh yeah, Klay's there too spot on it. No disrespect to Klay. Klay's had an incredible career. It's just right now, I'm not sure Klay moves the needle at the same way. How about this one? It took a few weeks, but Derek Skubal finally got his first win with the Dodgers on Saturday. Fanned 11 Pirates. That sounds like the theme to a movie. And that one, going 0 for the Dodgers ace, building a little momentum.
No, You don't get a wow for doing the things that are expected of you. You are Derek freaking Skubal, best pitcher in Major League Baseball, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers acquired Derek Skubal because they were going for it. They're pushing all their chips into the middle yet again to win their 3rd consecutive championship. You don't get a cookie for winning a game. I don't want to hear that. No, especially against the crummy, crappy Pirates who are 6 games below 500. You do not get a wow.
What gets a wow? What gets a wow is all the Dodgers haters out there that are hoping that somehow ownership issues send some great message to the Dodgers. And you look around like, you're going to have to sell the team. Like that we are so we've given up on the thought of anybody actually beating the Dodgers. So now we root for front office chaos to be some reason that their team sucks and your team doesn't. No. Look, you're right. Skubal wins.
That they
not
do
surprised.
have,
I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, this can't get a wow because unless you're doing it in October with the World Series on the line, we don't wow anything the Dodgers are doing right now. Back-to-back does not mean that we wow a win over the Pirates in the regular season for somebody that was acquired at the trade deadline that only reminded us the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. Rich poor in Major League Baseball. Let's remind everybody the poor isn't really all that poor. All right, stick with baseball. Holy grail of wow factors, I'm being told. This catch, AA baseball game. Check it out. You see it? Ball's in the air. Going out there. Up and away.
Oh!
Climbs the
Oh,
wall.
my
Go
goodness.
gadget arms this. Are we giving that a wow?
Absolutely, that gets a wow.
Wow.
That gets a double wow. Give it a triple wow. Oh, and let's hear it.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
3 wows. Look at that. How does a human being even jump up that high? He just climbed the wall like Spider-Man and stole a home run. Absolutely, that gets a wow.
I mean, the wall helped him. Like, he didn't really jump. Like, he jumped to the wall, and then he used his arm to prop his way up. Like, it was a nice little, it was a nice little move.
You
but
don't do that.
I mean, that's fine. It was fine. You use the hand to help him get up there. This is like me with wide receiver gloves. I drive everybody crazy. You are absolutely right. I could never do that. So give them all the credit in the world for an absolutely unreal play. But you gave out all the wows. Like, I can't give it another wow because now I'd have to give it 3 wows to really stand up to your wows. I can't do that. What I think they should do is call them up. Like, you make a play this late in the season, you make a play that's that good, you should get called up to get a big league check. I just think that should be like the rule. It's like, you know what? Play of the day. If it makes the SportsCenter top 10 type list, boom, you get played, you get called up, and you find yourself into the final. I think that's the the ultimate next step that we can move for Double A. Go ahead.
Maybe more important because I love minor league baseball team names. Does the Portland Sea Dogs as a minor league baseball team name get a wow?
Sea Dogs are okay. The logo gets a wow. Like we see a lot of the Portland Sea Dogs up in here in Hartford Yard Goat country. So yeah, like Sea Dogs versus Yard Goats. That's the sort of matchup you didn't know you needed.
Yard Goats is good. It's no Montgomery biscuits, but it's good.
I could have a whole closet full of just minor league baseball T-shirts, and I wouldn't regret a single one of those decisions. It's the branding in minor league baseball is undefeated. All right, let's get one more wow factor in here. We got a debate for PGA Tour Player of the Year. All right, got a little debate coming because Wyndham Clark wins the BMW Championship. All right, so now we're trying to figure out with that win, whose body of work is more wow-inducing. You have Wyndham Clark, who this year has three wins, 1 major, 5 top 5s, 11 top 25s. Or you have Scotty Scheffler, 2 wins, no majors, 12 top 5s, 5 runner-ups, 17 top 25s. How do we feel about this? Also, everybody loves one of these gentlemen. Everybody hates the other. This is the ultimate hero versus villain. What do you think?
If the people don't want to hear this, but if we blind resumed this, I don't even think that it would be a debate. Now, look, I understand why people don't like Wyndham Clark. I understand why Wyndham Clark got booed, and I don't entirely disagree with anybody who isn't Wyndham Clark's biggest fan. But the facts are the facts. The finishes are the finishes, and it's undeniable that Wyndham Clark does have a more wow-inducing body of work this year. He does, at least on paper, if you take the popularity contest out of it, he is more deserving.
Look, I need Wyndham Clark to win this. I tell you all the time, villains, the better the villain, the bigger the hero. That's just the way it goes. Like, when we think of the best Batman movies, we think of the best villains in those Batman movies. We don't have a Hulk Hogan unless Hulk Hogan has to take down the Iron Sheik, right? Like, the bigger the villain, the better the hero. So for Scotty Scheffler, we need more villainy. So we need Wyndham Clark to turn around and just become that guy that everybody can hate while he continues to win. The bigger the villain, the better the hero. Get one more in quick here. Harrison Butker, a 69-yard field goal in preseason. Are we wowing this?
Absolutely a wow, because that is absurd. I don't care if it's preseason. Distance is distance, and making that kick is absolutely crazy. I do wonder, though, if this becomes the norm. I don't expect it to, but we've seen Brandon Aubrey's leg. We've seen Brandon Aubrey hit from 55 plus, 60 plus. If that starts to become the norm in the NFL, I do wonder if the league feels the need to respond and change something, whether it's change a rule, change the goalpost, whatever it might be. I'm not necessarily in favor of that right now, but I think that conversation is coming up sooner than we might think.
Twitter gave me a football highlight from the early 80s, and there was a 45-yard field goal attempt. And when you listened to the announcers in the 80s go nuts over, oh my God, he made a 45-yard field goal, and you think about the conversations we have now, Caroline, I'm not sure we're that far off. Like, you're right. If your kicker misses a 45-yarder, he gets cut. Kickers in preseason right now are battling between 55 and 65-yard field goals for a reason. I'm not sure we aren't that far off from having to figure out ways to make kicks more difficult, because kickers have gotten too much leg, especially with the new field goal kicking rules. Obviously, that's only going to give us more opportunity. Like, when your kicker can make a 70-yarder, you're basically in field goal range with 1 first down. We will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks so much for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back. See us again tomorrow.